Fourth grade, and welcome to lesson 5-9. This lesson is titled Choose a Strategy. Now, what we're going to be doing in this lesson is reviewing all of the different techniques and strategies that we've used and learned so far to help us solve division problems. And we're going to put them all together so that when we come across a division problem, we can look at everything that we've already learned and decide which one is going to be best for us in that particular question. So let's watch our short lesson video and then we will get started with our notes.
How do you choose a strategy to divide? The table shows the number of hot dogs sold on game days last week. There are 8 hot dogs in a package. How many packages of hot dogs were used on Saturday? Divide 834 by 8 to find the number of packages used on Saturday. Think about which strategy you can use to solve the problem. Think, I can use partial quotients. There are 108s in 834. There are 4 8s in 34. 834 divided by 8 equals 104, remainder 2. How many packages of hot dogs were used on Saturday? Select your answer.
Okay, now with this question, it's a little bit of a tricky question. So you have to really think about it. Now we know that they used 104 whole packages, but they had a remainder, which means they used part of another package. So altogether, they didn't use 104 packages. They actually opened and used 105 packages. So 104 they used completely, plus a little bit or 2 out of the 5th or 105th package.
They used 104 full packages plus 1 more for the 2 remaining hot dogs. There were 105 packages of hot dogs used on Saturday. On Sunday, the 3 food stands each sold the same number of hot dogs. How many hot dogs were sold at each stand? You can use the distributive property to divide 216 by 3. Think, I can break 216 apart and divide with mental math. 216 equals 210 plus 6. Divide each part by 3 and simplify. 72 hot dogs were sold at each stand.
All right, now that we've gone through our short lesson video, let's go ahead and get into our notes. Now we're going to go over a lot of strategies that we have learned while going through this particular chapter. So through chapter 5 or topic 5, we did learn a lot of different strategies that I want to go over with you so that when you come across a problem, you can decide which one is the best one for you to help you solve. So in trying to figure out how to solve a division problem, think about all of the strategies that you've learned so far. Some strategies that you've practiced are estimating quotients. We can do that by using rounding or by using compatible numbers. You can use fact families to find the missing parts. Those related facts in a fact family can help you look at a problem in a different way. So if you have, for example, 72 divided by a number equals 8, and you're not sure what it is, flip it around and use the related multiplication fact to help you solve. So you can think about it as 8 times what number equals 72 and go through your multiplication facts that way to find your missing number. You can also look for patterns to help you solve larger problems or for problems that have larger numbers in them. So if you know that 72 divided by 9 equals 8, 720 divided by 9 is going to equal 80. So this is 72 tens divided by 9 will give you 8 tens. Over here, we have 72 hundreds, or 7,200 divided by 9 will equal 800. So 72 hundreds, that's the 2 zeros, divided by 9 will give you 800. Again, we have those 2 zeros here. So by using those basic facts, so this is your basic fact over here, you can solve larger problems. So if you drop that 0 in the beginning and just do 72 divided by 9, we know it equals 8. When you add that 0 back in, you add it on both sides. Same thing with the hundreds. Or what you can do is draw to solve. You can use your base 10 blocks or a bar diagram, and then find partial quotients as well. So you can use sharing to divide, and this is something we've been doing the last couple lessons, where you can draw your base 10 blocks, break apart the large pieces into smaller ones whenever you need to share. So if I have 55 divided by 2, just by looking at this, I know 55 is an odd number, so I'm going to end up with a remainder because only even numbers can be divided by 2. So I drew my 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my 55, and I needed to put them into 2 groups. So I drew my 2 groups over here. So I know I can't divide 5 equally into 2 groups, but I can divide 4 equally. So I put 2 there and 2 there. And then I had that 1 extra that I couldn't share equally between the 2 groups when it was still in a group of 10. So I took it and I broke it apart and split it into 10 ones. So now I had the 10 ones plus the 5 ones that I had originally. So that's 15 ones. Now I know I can break apart 10 into 2 equal groups, 5 and 5, and then put 1 of each over here until I run out. So I ended up with 7 because with 15, I can't do 15 divided by 2, but I can do 14 divided by 2, and that'll give me 7. And I had my 1 left over out here. So my answer to 52 divided by 2 was equal to 27 with a remainder of 1. Now, if you want to do it long division style like this and use partial quotients, you can do that. So I know there's how many 10s, how many 2s go into 55. So I know there's at least 20 2s that go into 55. So I put my 2 over here up in the 10s place. Remember, keep your place values separated. And like I told you, you can definitely go ahead and draw the lines to make sure that you're drawing your place values correctly. So 2, this 2 up here tells me that it's in the 10s place. So 2 times 20 is 40. So I subtracted off my 40 and I was left with 15 down here. 2 goes into 15 7 times. That goes in the ones place because 7 is a single digit number. 2 times 7 is 14. I subtracted the 14 and I was left with my remainder down here, which is 1. So my answer was 27 remainder 1. Now I can check my answer by doing the inverse operation. Remember, inverse means opposite. So if I was dividing, the opposite is going to be to multiply. So I need to multiply that 27 times 2, and then I need to add that 1 to my answer to figure out what my whole number is. So 27 times 2, 2 times 7 is 14. I put the 4 here and I carried the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. That gave me 54. Then I had to add my remainder. Remember, you have to add the remainder back in. 54 plus 1 more gave me 55. So now that I saw that my answer here was the same as the number that I started with, I knew that my work was correct. So next we're going to get into our guided practice for this lesson. Now our guided practice question, the first one said, Vicky's estimated quotient was 80. The actual quotient she calculated was 48. Is her actual quotient reasonable? Explain. Annotate your questions, circle your numbers, underline everything that you have to do. So we have to do 2 things. We have to decide, is her answer reasonable? And then we have to explain. So if she estimated 80 and the answer she got was 48, her answer is not reasonable. Because remember, in order for something to be reasonable, it has to be close to the estimate that you came up with. So she needs to go back and rework that problem, whatever problem she was solving. Now for numbers 2 and 3, we're going to be working on division. Now, because we're using larger numbers, I split them and I drew my lines to separate my place value, my thousands to place, hundreds place, tens and ones. So that way, when I'm solving and I'm writing my numbers underneath, it's easier for me to keep track. Now over here, I only have hundreds, tens, and ones that I'm going to be working with. So 9 times something in the thousands place is not going to equal 2,000, right? Because one group of 1,000 is going to be 9,000. So let's look at these 2 digits together. So how many 9s go into 28? So stop and think. 9 times what gets you close to 28 without passing it? Well, I know 9 times 3 is 27. So 9 times 300 would give me 2,700. So I'm going to put my 3 in the hundreds place because I know I'm working with hundreds. I'm going to subtract 2,700 or 2,700 and see what I have remaining. 1 minus 0 is 0. 7 minus 0 is 7. 8 minus 7 is 1. And the 2's cancel each other out. So 9 goes into 17 how many times? So we're looking at the 170. We'll drop the 0 for a minute. We know 9 times 1 is 9 and 9 times 2 is 18. So we can't do times 2. So 9 times 1 is 9, or 9 times 10 is going to be 90. So I'm going to put a 1 in the tens place, and I'm going to subtract 90 here. 170 minus 90 is going to give me, so 0 minus 0 is 0. I can't do 7 take away 9, so this 7 is going to become a 17. I'm going to borrow from there. And since I'm borrowing that one group, there's not any groups left. So 17 take away 9 is going to give me 8. 0 take away 0 is 0. 17 take away 9 is 8. And then there's nothing there. So 9 goes into 80 how many times? I know when I go through my 9 multiplication facts, I know 9 times 10 is 90. So I can't do 9 times 10. 9 times 9 is 81. So I can't do 9 times 9. So I'll have to do 9 times 8. 9 times 8, since 8 is a single digit number, it goes in the ones group. 9 times 8 is 72. So I'm going to subtract 72. And I'm going to see that I have a remainder over here. So this becomes a 10. This becomes a 7. 10 minus 2 is 8. And this is obviously a 0 because 7 minus 7 is 0. Now, here's my remainder down here at the bottom because 9 does not go into 8 any times. 9 is bigger than 8. So that number is going to be my remainder. So 2,871 divided by 9 was equal to 318 with a remainder of 8. All you have to do is break it into one piece at a time. No matter how big your number is, if you're able to break it apart and decompose it into small pieces, you can solve any problem no matter how big it is. Let's take a look at this one. 4 goes into 400 how many times? Well, that's easy. We know 4 times 100 is equal to 400. So I'm going to put the 1 in the hundreds place, and that tells me that I'm working with 100. I will subtract off 400, and I'm left with 68. Now 4 goes into 68 how many times? Let's think. We know it goes into it at least 10 times, right? Since we're working the tens place. 10 groups of 4 is 40. I can't do 20 groups of 4 because that's going to be 80. So I'm going to put a 2 in my tens place, subtract off 40, and that's going to give me 28. I need to extend my lines down a little bit. Now I have to think 4 goes into 28 how many times? So stop and go through your multiplication facts. I know 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, 4 times 7 is 28. So I'm going to put my 7 up here. 4 times 7, it's a single digit number in the ones place. 4 times 7 is equal to 28. Subtract those off. I have nothing left over, so I have a remainder of 0. So 468 divided by 4 is equal to 127 with no remainders left over. Now, one of the other questions that you guys were asking me to go over was one of the longer questions that was also out in the thousands. So let's take a look at number 4 quickly. Number 4 is not one of your guided practice questions. This is actually one of your independent practice questions, but I wanted to go through another large number division with you so that you know how to solve it. So for number 4, you have 3,288. So 3 2, 8, 8, and it's going to be divided by 8. And I'm going to separate my place values again, just because it's easier for me to keep my numbers organized if I'm making sure I give myself a guideline so I don't make a mistake. So there are no thousands. There's no 8,000s that can go into 3,000. So let's look at 32. How many 8s are in 32? I know 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is going to be what? 16 plus 16 is going to give you 32. So 8 times 4 is going to give me 32, but 8 times 400 will give me 3,200. So I'm going to put my 4 up here because 8 times 400, remember this is the hundreds place, tens place, the ones place, and out here was the thousands place. I don't have any 8,000s and 3,000s, so I have to look at the next number. So we're going to take off the 3,200 or the 3,200, and we're left with 88. So 8 goes into 88 how many times? Well, I know 8 goes into 88 at least 10 times, so we're going to put a 10 here. We can subtract off 80. You're left with 8, and then 8 goes into 8 one more time. And you're left with a remainder of 0 over here. So 3,288 divided by 8 is equal to 411. All right, these are your guided practice questions, as well as your first independent practice question that I solved for you over here. Remember, go through it one digit at a time. You guys will be able to solve all of these questions, use the different strategies that we've learned. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.